Hey, welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network at MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Brought to you by Central Bank of the Ozarks, Laborers Local 663, Doak Propane, the Bank of Billings, Shelter Insurance Agents Grant Baker in Aurora, and Sean Holman in Lockwood. As always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome to the show Mike Huguenin, National Executive Editor and college sports writer at on3.com, and at Mike Huguenin on Twitter. It's right there at the bottom of the screen. You can get connected to everything that he writes. And for my money, one of the best college sports writers in the country. And we've had opportunities to visit with him several times at ESPN and now here on the Missouri Sports Network. Mike, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm not sure if interviewing me is an honor, but what the heck, I'll take it.
You bet. I tell you, I've always enjoyed your insight. Now you're with On Three. You might kind of fill the viewers in a little bit about On3.com, what you're doing over there, and how people can get connected.
Yeah, on3.com. It's a recruiting website with a national coverage aspect. Our main national writer is Ivan Mazel. Eric Prisbel, who used to work for the Washington Post and USA Today, is our sports business writer. And if you follow college sports, the business aspect is frankly right now as big as the on-field aspect. Also work with Matt Zenitz, who breaks a ton of coaching and transfer portal news. But at its core, it's a recruiting website, and we're a little less than a week away from National Signing Day, which used to be a gigantic deal, and now because of the early signing period in the portal, its importance has lessened. But if you're a fan of any college team, you know that next week you're hoping your coach adds 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe as many as 10 players, because it's still important, National Signing Day, but not nearly as important as it used to be.
As you look at just the last 30 to 36 months in college athletics, and you look at the NIL, you look at the transfer portals, prep schools, and now the extra years that have been giving to, because of COVID-19, a lot of these seniors coming out that maybe are not your 4 and 5 star athletes just don't have a lot of places they can play because there's
Yeah,
just not a lot of scholarships left.
right, and that's the aspect now. If you're a college coach, roster management obviously always has been vital, but I would argue now that the makeup of your roster, how you acquire that talent, it requires extra detail now. Because let's use the early signing period and National Signing Day as an example. In years past, okay, we can sign 25 guys, and you're signing 25 high school kids or maybe 23 high school kids and 2 junior college guys. Now it's okay, do we sign 18 high school kids and 7 guys out of the portal? What's the makeup of our roster going to be? And you see more and more schools, especially in the Power 5 ranks, the schools with money, a lot of money, adding personnel directors to their support staff. Not only do you have high school personnel directors now, you have college personnel directors, and those guys are in charge of combing through the transfer portal and finding guys that might be fits at your school. So roster acquisition, the talent acquisition rather, it has changed immensely in, as you pointed out, the last 2 years.
As you look at just back on this past season, kind of putting a bow on it with Georgia getting the national championship over Alabama, you look at maybe some of the other surprises there in the league. I was surprised a little bit by Iowa State and their lack of performance. You had Indiana coming back, who had 9 guys returning on defense, and they kind of fell on their face as well. And then the stuff that went on in Oklahoma is just absolutely ridiculous, and that's probably a feature of them in Texas, deciding to join the SEC.
Yeah, I think from the Oklahoma Texas standpoint, it's hard to find fault with schools realizing we can make a boatload more money if we change leagues, and that's what college athletics has become more and more. We got to have the money. We got to keep up with the Joneses. Indiana, you're right. Indiana was a preseason top 20 team, finished 2-10. Injuries ravaged IU. They had 4 different starting quarterbacks. But I agree. Iowa State to me was the biggest disappointment by far. Relatively few injuries. They just woefully underperformed. And I think the season sort of turned for them in game two. They play Iowa, hugely hyped game, and Iowa State sort of withered in the spotlight. The moment seemed too big for them. They never regained their footing. And a team that at the beginning of the season, people were saying, "Hey, this is a potential playoff team if everything breaks exactly right." Instead, they finished 7-6 and end their season in the Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, going just a little bit closer to home, and you obviously stationed there in Orlando, Florida, but spent a lot of time here in Missouri. But Oklahoma and that whole situation, they bench Connor uh, uh, Rattler or Spencer Rattler in the beginning of the season in favor of Caleb Williams, and he has a outstanding season from then on. And then you've got the coach deciding, oh, okay, I'm not going to LSU. Is it what he kept saying?
Yeah,
Well, the whole time he's going to USC. Probably just a dumpster fire there in Oklahoma.
I think though they've recovered. Brent Venables is, I think, going to be a pretty good head coach. I'm not sure he's going to be on the Bob Stoops level, but I think Venables knows what he's doing. I think the recruiting has sort of solidified. They're going to recruit a little bit differently than Lincoln Riley did. I think Lincoln Riley looked at the future and said, to an extent, okay, Oklahoma obviously is a blue blood, going to a more difficult league. I can go to a different blue blood program, USC, and you look around the Pac 12 and you realize it's a vast wasteland, man. So I'm going to go to Southern California, recruit tons of kids that live within 15 miles of my campus. And be ultra successful. And I think Lincoln Riley, given his offensive acumen, is going to be successful. That's an offense that skill position players especially want to play in. And the Caleb Williams transfer portal saga is extremely interesting. You look at USC, Keaton Slovis, considered an NFL potential quarterback, transfers out. Jackson Dart, another guy with NFL potential, transfers out. And all along, the assumption has been, well, Caleb Williams is going to rejoin Lincoln Riley. The last couple of days, you hear, wait a second here, Caleb Williams actually has a connection at Wisconsin. And as far fetched as that sounds, I don't think it's going to happen, but there are legs to that story. Wisconsin's bringing in Bobby Ingram as their offensive coordinator. He had been with the Ravens as their tight ends coach. And if you're a first-time offensive coordinator who can say to a guy like Caleb Williams, a really athletic quarterback who can use his legs, I'm bringing part of the Ravens playbook with me. And remember, Lamar Jackson became an NFL MVP using this playbook. So that's a good selling point for Caleb Williams. He played with Bobby Ingram's son in high school. Caleb's dad and Bobby Ingram Sr. are good friends. So the Wisconsin rumor, so to speak, has some legs, but I still find it hard to believe that Caleb Williams would turn down a chance to reconnect with Lincoln Riley in LA. You mentioned before the NIL aspect of college athletics now. If Caleb Williams goes to USC and becomes the star that everybody thinks he's going to become, he literally, I don't mean figuratively, he literally could dump money into his bathtub and swim in it. Because if there is any market ripe for guys to benefit from NIL, it's Los Angeles. So we've done a couple stories at On3 about what would Reggie Bush have made if NIL were around when he played. And you're like, my God, he wouldn't have needed to go to the NFL. He would have been that rich.
Again, visiting with Mike Huguenin, the national executive editor and college sports writer at on3.com and at Mike Huguenin on Twitter. As you look around at some of the changes at the head coaches, did anything surprise you? Whether it be Brian Kelly going to LSU, and then he had the fake Southern accent deal that he kind of pulled there. That when he was speaking there at the basketball game. Any moves surprise you, or any moves you think really benefited one school with the coach either leaving or coming in?
Yeah, when you think about it, this offseason has 29 coaches have changed. And in that group, you had the Notre Dame coaching turnover, LSU coaching turnover, Oklahoma coaching turnover, USC coaching turnover, Florida coaching turnover. So you could argue that half of the nation's 10 best jobs and certainly a third of the nation's top 15 jobs changed in one off season, which is mind blowing. Um, Brian Kelly going to LSU, I think, was the most somewhat surprising in a way. I think Brian Kelly is a really good coach, and if you consider that Les Miles and Ed Orgeron won national titles at LSU, I think it's safe to say that almost anybody can win a national title at LSU. And Brian Kelly certainly is a better coach than Orgeron and Miles. The question with Brian Kelly, as you alluded to, the fit there, the makeup of his staff, and how they're going to recruit. One thing that Miles had was a staff that was recruiting demons. The same thing with Orgeron, and Orgeron himself was a phenomenal recruiter. Brian Kelly does not have that reputation. His staff, you wonder if they're going to truly connect with all the players in the state of Louisiana. But Lincoln Riley to USC to me is a slam dunk hire. I don't think it will be very long before USC is back at the top of the Pac-12, which will, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if USC returns to its glory days of the 2005, 2006 time, the Pac-12 is going to benefit greatly. And again, I can't see Lincoln Riley not having a tremendous amount of success with the Trojans.
Talking about Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, have they become too toxic for?
Yeah, Miles for sure. Orgeron, I could see him becoming maybe a defensive line coach again. People forget, and that USC team I was mentioned, he was a defensive line coach there. He was a defensive line coach at University of Miami when they were a powerhouse. So he is considered a really good, really high level defensive line coach. Good guy when it comes to coaching technique. He's a good motivator. I can't imagine a Power 5 program turning to Ed Orgeron. And I'm not sure all coaches have egos, but I'm not sure Ed Orgeron's ego would allow him to coach at a school like Louisiana Tech or Louisiana Monroe, where I think he could have some success. But Les Miles, I think his coaching career is over.
Getting into our state here at Missouri, Mizzou football has woefully underperformed since really in the past decade. Where do you see them? They're kind of their fit in the SEC. They've had a pretty good recruiting class coming in back-to-back seasons. What are your expectations there with the Mizzou Tigers?
Well, in 2022, you look at the SEC East. Georgia's going to win it again. That is a loaded roster, though it is a little bit bizarre. You have a national title winning quarterback announcing that he's returning, and half the fan base is, oh, God, no, please not. But Georgia's going to finish first. Vanderbilt's going to finish seventh. The other spots, 2 through 6, I think it's wide open. Tennessee is going to have a really good offense and a really bad defense. I think Kentucky, what Mark Stoops has done there is extremely impressive. Kentucky, as long as Stoops is there, will be a physical defensive team. Offensively, they returned their quarterback, Will Levis. Chris Rodriguez came back after running for 1,000. So I think there's hope at Kentucky they can finish second. Florida's got a new coach. If nothing else, the infrastructure at Florida is going to change in terms of they're going to spend a heck of a lot more money on recruiting. Let's put it that way. And there's also Missouri. Mizzou, Connor Bazelak leaving. I don't think that many folks are that upset. The defensive side of the ball, Mizzou was brutal stopping the run, just horrendous. Still wonder if Steve Wilkes is going to be back because he is an ex-NFL guy, obviously, and there's still a lot of NFL staffs that are going to be finalized. It wouldn't surprise me if someone reaches down and brings Steve Wilkes back to the NFL. But looking ahead to 2022, I think Missouri, as well as Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, could finish anywhere between 2 and 6th. And I forgot South Carolina in there. Spencer Rattler goes to South Carolina. But from a talent standpoint, I think they're the second least talented team in the division. We'll see what Rattler means there. But the SEC East middle next year is wide open, and that should make for some fascinating football.
I know I'm kind of jumping around here just a little bit, but looking forward to next year, is there another Cincinnati type team, and it may be Cincinnati that can make it into that Final Four? Being not of a Power Five, so to speak, conference,
Yeah,
and is it Cincinnati?
I think Cincinnati's losing too much talent. Desmond Ritter's leaving. Jerome Ford's leaving. Um, Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant. Fourth, they start 5 men in their secondary. Four are gone. Myjai Sanders, their best defensive lineman. Curtis Brooks gone. They lost too much talent. I think Fickle knows what he's doing. He has built a solid program, no question. But even solid programs backslide sometimes. And I think Cincinnati finished 13-1. And next year, to me, they're more like a 9-win team. I don't think there's a group of 5 team next year that's going to challenge for the playoff. I think UCF and Houston will contend with Cincinnati in the American and the Mountain West. Fresno State's the team to watch for me. They changed coaches. Kalen DeBoer left for Washington. They bring back Jeff Tedford, who's coached there before, had to retire for health reasons. Now he's back. But the key for Fresno, they got Jake Haener back, the quarterback who threw 35 touchdown passes. That kid is a really good quarterback. They throw the heck out of the ball. Tedford's not going to change anything offensively because basically Fresno was still running a good portion of the offense he left behind. So if there's a team on the West Coast that could be a surprise, I think it's Fresno, but it would shock me next year if a group of 5 team made the playoff.
Outstanding as always. And Mike, I know college football writing, especially in these day and times, is a 50-hour a week job. 12 months out of the year, you're just spending time. What are you spending your time on right now? Here as we end in the month of January and head into February. What are you looking forward to?
Well, weirdly, the 2022 season starts exactly 7 months from today, week 0. And we actually have a story today. Week 0, there's one good game, Nebraska, Northwestern. They're playing in Dublin, Ireland, which a little bizarre, obviously. But the first weekend of the season, September 4th, 205 days away. And then, man, there are a boatload of really good games that first week. Surprisingly good games. And so if you want to read about those, we have them up on the site. But yeah, I think the continued impact of NIL, the continued impact of the transfer portal, the transfer portal, obviously, on what's going to happen in 2022 on the field, and NIL as more teams, more schools become comfortable with it, because there's a lot of uneasiness about NIL right now. But some schools have fully embraced it, have used it well on the recruiting trail. Ohio State, Texas A&M, Texas, presumably USC will get sort of on the ball because, again, Lincoln Riley is going to be successful there. But the sports business aspect of college football, I know it sort of antagonizes some people, but it's not going away, and the importance is going to increase.
Outstanding. Well, Mike, as always, I certainly appreciate you being generous with your time. And it's 28 degrees here. What's the temperature where you are right now?
61. Now, I will say that Saturday night, the low here is 30, which means that Orlando will come to a complete standstill. People are already up in arms, panicking. There's a run on firewood at all the local grocery stores. You can buy the packaged firewood here, and those shelves have been picked clean. So, because when it gets 30 in Orlando, man, that's like it's hell freezing over, really, seriously. So it's weird.
Well, my brother, a pastor down in Pensacola, and he had sent me a news article where folks are being asked to watch out for iguanas falling out of trees
Oh yeah,
because it's
yeah.
going to get so cold
It
that
sounds
they're just
weird.
going to drop.
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in Miami. Iguanas weren't a problem when I was a kid, but I still got a couple friends down there, and iguanas are an issue. And you're right, iguanas live outside. Obviously, when it gets super cold, under like 40, their body basically stops working and they fall from wherever they are. So if they are in trees on the top of your house, um, there are reports of, like, in certain areas with more trees and stuff, there's like a thud every 30 seconds, and those are iguanas falling to the ground. That's
Un-
true. It's sort of mind blowing, but it's true.
Unbelievable. Well, Mike, I certainly appreciate it. It's been a thrill to catch up with you, and I hope that we can do this again some point. One more time, just tell the folks how to read what you're writing and find out more about what you're putting out.
Yeah, on3, on3.com. Again, because National Signing Day is next Wednesday, we've had a ton of stuff this week about the key guys who are still out there ready to sign. And we've written a lot the last week or so about the NCAA wants to revamp itself. Ivan Maisel weighed in on that. Eric Criswell's done a couple stories. So if you're a college fan, even if the NCAA changes its constitution, changes its rules, the fans are going to be there because you cheer for what it says on the front of the shirt, whether it says Missouri, whether it says Florida, whether it says Oklahoma. So no matter how many changes the NCAA undergoes, at its core, the fans' enthusiasm is not going to wane.
You bet. You bet. Mike, it's been great. I look forward to our next visit, and have a
All right.
great day. God bless you. Stay
Appreciate you having me on.
warm.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
You
stay
bet.
warm. Exactly. Thanks, man.
You bet. Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Keep it right here.